What the world needs now is love, sweet love, and sports. The world needs sports, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. But before we get to tonight's show, let me introduce myself. I am your host, David Doc Shirey, author of the book, Rare Confidence, Strategies and Inspiration to Strengthen Your Belief that you can achieve anything. I want to thank you for tuning in to the first ever episode of Confidently Speaking with D.O.C. I promise you, over the weeks and months ahead, we're going to talk about it all. There's no subjects we're going to avoid. There's a lot going on in our world right now, and my hope is to bring it to you in a fair way. I'm opinionated. We're humans. I may be a little biased, but my goal is to bring on people with opinions from all walks of life. And it's going to be a fun show because you're going to be a big part of it. Tonight, I need you to comment, ask questions, say, Doc, please don't freaking sing anymore. Not going to be a lot more singing. I hear that in my own household. Trust me, I just needed a way to shock your system when we got started on here. And hopefully I was able to do that. In future episodes, I don't think we're going to do this tonight, but in future episodes, I'm going to post a link at the bottom of the screen where you, the viewer, can actually join the broadcast. That's right. All you got to do is copy and paste that link right into your browser, and you can come into the virtual studio, and I'll put you on the air. And through the magic of video, you'll be able to be on the air with myself and our guests. But tonight, I need you to be involved, ask my guest questions, and without any further ado, let's introduce him right now. My man has been a KDKA sports anchor. He was the former host of the 93.7 The Fan morning show. He's been the host of the Pittsburgh Pirates pre- and post-game shows. He's done a lot more stuff than that in 30-plus years of Pittsburgh sports. I could not have a better guest for a first guest than my man, Paul Alexander. Paul, how you doing, buddy?
Doc, I've never been better. How are you?
I'm doing great. Listen,
I would cut back on the singing just a bit.
You think?
I don't think we want to go there in future episodes.
Because if the talk thing doesn't work out, I was going to go down that path as a career.
No, I think talk's working fine.
You think? Okay.
You're famous, things I think on Facebook. I mean, you got good stuff going. Don't sabotage it with the singing.
My man, the check's in the mail. Maybe another check in the mail, depending upon how this goes. We'll see. Right. We'll figure that one out. But seriously, Paul, I want to thank you for being my first guest on this show.
My pleasure.
As we were talking about before we got started here, I was really running through my cranium as to who would be the perfect first guest. And I really didn't want it to be too heavy. We got a lot going on in our world right now. But I wanted the first episode to be one where people can get to know the format and understand kind of how this is going to work so that when we get into some heavier issues, there'll be a time and a place for that. And at the end of tonight's episode, I'm going to announce what I got going on Thursday, and we're going to get pretty heavy on Thursday. But for tonight, we are not going to get that heavy. I want to ask you a question, Paul. Sports has always been an outlet, right? I know it's been for me. I'm a sports-loving dude. I mean, growing up in the 70s in Pittsburgh, it's in our DNA. And, the Crow Nizzle hits, for people that don't know, I call it the Crow Nizzle because Snoop Dogg early on said, if you don't want to get the Crow Nizzle, stay up in yo hizzle. So Crow Nizzle's much better than the coronavirus, and it sounds better. So it's the Crow Nizzle to me. But, if we had to be home for 3 months and we could watch ball every night, it would have made it a little more, palatable, right? My question to you is, what is it about sports that captivates us so that when we don't have it, we don't realize what we've been missing?
I think it's real easy. It's the only unscripted, true-to-life reality show. It's completely unpredictable. You have no idea what's going to happen. You have Villanova over Georgetown. You have the U.S. Upsetting the Russians and the Miracle on Ice. You just don't know what's going to happen. And then it's the passion. It's the emotion. The majority of us grew up playing it. So, we're attached to it that way. But to me, it's the emotional roller coaster. It's the fact that you really don't know what's going to happen. I'm just fascinated by it. I love competition. I love watching it. I love participating. I love everything about sports. And from a team sports perspective, Doc, truly the best part about it, like with my son now, 17, he officially became a senior in high school today because he's done with his junior year. The lessons that he's learned, the lessons that we learned growing up playing sports, life's not always fair. You don't always win. Sometimes a coach is going to, have it out for you. You know what? There's nothing you can do. An official's going to make a bad call. That's something you got to live with. It's really a great way to just really prepare you for life. And if you take it the right way, if the parents don't ruin it, if they don't screw it up for the kids and let you experience, you can work as hard as you want, get as good as you want. Those are the kind of things that I love about sports.
I agree with you 1,000%. I can't tell you how many times I've had those conversations with my son, who's going to be 20 a week from today. And, he played 4 years of soccer at Alderdice and, and tons of Little League baseball and tons of hoops. And after so many games of me saying, son, here's a life lesson. And after a while, I've gotten a Heisman from him. Dad, if I hear one more freaking life lesson from you, but, the hope is that it sticks, even if he didn't want to hear it anymore. At some point,
every time I would try to impart, a little bit of logic or a little bit of expertise, wasn't well received. And of course, my son gravitated towards soccer because it was probably my least, as far as expertise goes, least qualified sport to help him with. So of course that became his passion. But now I love it, and he's doing great. All section last year, it was a whole lot of fun to watch. But I would tell him something that I thought would help him. Not having it. The coach would tell him the same thing a day or two later. Dad, coach told me this. Oh, really? I guess as long as coach tells you that, it makes sense. But
right.
It's, one thing I read a while ago, and any younger parents out there that have kids that are still coming up playing whatever it is they play, don't critique them as soon as the game's over. Don't tell them what they didn't do right. Don't tell them what they should have done. Ask them if they had fun and tell them how much fun it was to watch. Period.
It's great advice. Great advice.
Let it go.
So you mentioned a minute ago, one of the things you love about sports is the passion and the excitement. And I think any sports fan would agree with you. Can't argue with that. So my next question is, in the world of Crow Nizzle, when they finally come back to play and we don't have the ability to see the passion and excitement of the fans, and how momentum, every player in every sport talks about how they feel it from that crowd, what's that going to look like?
I don't know. I don't know if you read anything about what happened in the Korean Baseball League, the KBO. They actually had put some mannequins. There we go.
Right there.
Man, are you strong or what? What turns out they were actually sex dolls. So I'm not sure that was well received by the.
Maybe that's why we only see their upper half.
Yeah. So I don't know how it's going to go. I know it's going to be strange. I mean, I've been in some pretty empty arenas. Unfortunately, they played some games. I did, women's college basketball at Penn State. They get like 1,100 fans, which wasn't horrible, but in a, 18, 20,000 seat arena, it's a little different. You look at some of the high school games that I was able to do when they would have that at the Pete, or they'd have it somewhere, they'd have, a fair amount of fans, but they're not filling it up. I have a feeling it's going to have that kind of sense that, and what's really going to be strange is everything that we hear. You're going to hear everything the coach says, everything the referee says, everything the players say to each other. It's going to be really strange what they're going to pick up with those microphones.
I mean, it's basically going to be a made-for-TV production.
Absolutely.
Right?
So we're going to eat it up. I mean, I watched every second of that silly golf match the other day with Tiger and Phil and Brady and Peyton. I mean, it was entertaining. It was something to watch.
I mean, listen, how can you not love Peyton Manning, right? I mean, the dude is just oozes with self-effacing humor. And then there's Tom Brady on the flip side, who's just socially awkward. I don't know.
He
Is
is.
that the right word?
He is awkward. I mean, he's going to go down as the greatest, team athlete in history. But yeah, he is kind of awkward.
Yeah.
He brought nothing. I mean, he really brought nothing to that whole.
Nothing.
Of course, I mean, he knocks in
Right.
an 8-iron for 160 yards and jars it. I mean, that's who he is.
No question about it. Let's turn our attention to hockey. So the NHL has this, I'm going to call it a cockamamie plan, because I just don't understand why they're doing it. For anybody who's watching that's not aware what they're doing, they're putting together a 24-team playoff, but the top 4 teams in each conference get a bye, and then 5 through 12 have to play a best of 5 play-in, of which the Penguins are just on the outside of that top 4 at 5, so they got to play the
Even though they have the 7th best overall record in the NHL, but by conference,
right.
Yeah, they're going to have to play in.
I guess my biggest issue with the way that the NHL wants to do this is the fact that it's going to basically affect 2 seasons. So it's going to run really late this year. Then they're going to delay the start of next year. So instead of just maybe scrapping this year and starting over as if a brand new season, is it all about the money?
You just answered the question.
Yeah.
It's always, always, always about the money. And even though the NHL does not have the big-time TV contracts that the other professional sports leagues have, they need some money. And the NHL, when you go to NHL games, you're a Penguin season ticket holder, you honestly are part of the program, because the NHL depends on the gate to pay everybody. They really do. The Penguins, they need to have at least 3 home playoff games to actually get into a profit, margin area. They need to make it to the postseason to actually make some money. I mean, big money. They all do okay, don't get me wrong. But I love the fact that they put something together. And the thing I love about the NHL, all they want to do is play. Yeah, it's not perfect. Yeah, it's not ideal. But they went like this. Yeah, we're in. Just tell us where and when. That's what the NHL is. What's baseball doing right now? They're not giving us enough money. That's too many games. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. They're the whiniest pains in the you-know-what out there. And they don't understand. Like my son right now, 17, Dad, why are you even talking to me about baseball? I don't even want to hear about it. He has no interest, no desire, no anything. They've lost generations of fans. I'm a diehard baseball fan. Love baseball, always have, always will. But if they don't play this year and it comes down because the billionaires and the millionaires couldn't agree, they could do more damage. I remember in '94 when they didn't play a World Series. I was so angry. I was so done with baseball, but unfortunately or fortunately, my profession didn't allow me to be done with baseball. I was the guy that it was every single Pirate game during the 20 years of losing, interviewing the guys that rather shoot me than talk to me at that point.
Right.
And, my favorite day in the world was first day at training camp in Latrobe, where I was never going to watch another Pirate game the rest of that year. That was my favorite day. That was like being released from prison. That's like our lockdown being like we get on Friday, we get to actually go to a restaurant or a bar. That was that kind of feeling. But my point is that baseball better be careful with what they do here. I don't think they're nearly as fat and happy as they think they should be, because I don't think people care that much about it anymore.
Well, it seems like baseball players are tone deaf compared to hockey players. And, every World Series game doesn't start till 8:38 Eastern Standard Time. An 8th grade kid is in bed by the 4th inning. And the next generation, where are they coming from?
Yeah, I mean, they have lost touch, and they have lost, I think, complete sense of the reality of where they are right now. They're a very slow-paced game. Attention spans are smaller and shorter, and they're not appealing to that at all. I mean, the only things they really do well now, basically what they've stolen from, the minor league clubs when they do all the silly stuff. I mean, the kids love the silly stuff. Running around the bat, falling down. The stuff they do between innings is the only thing that captures the young kids' attention these days.
I know. There's only so many pierogi races you could have.
Yeah.
I mean, all right, so we have a question here.
That's it.
We have a question from an old friend of yours, Jim Bennett. If baseball doesn't happen, will the Pirates have a high draft pick?
They haven't determined that at all. In fact, they've already limited the baseball draft to, I believe, 5 rounds. I mean, it used to be close to 50, and they've already reduced it. It used to be, every June it was time for the draft. And the one thing that they did to smaller market clubs, the Pirates used to brag about, we just spent $12 million on the draft. I mean, they got Josh Bell, who told everybody, do not draft me. I'm going to the University of Texas, and I'm from a family of educators. I'm going to school. And then the Pirates said, how about $5 million? He went, where do I sign? They took away the ability. Now there's slotted draft picks because the Yankees and the Dodgers didn't like the fact that the Pirates were overspending in the draft. So they complained. So the one little advantage the Pirates could actually build their team with, Major League Baseball took away. Because the Pirates and the other small market teams are the Washington Generals to the rest of the Harlem Globetrotter. The big market teams have to beat somebody. So that's who they beat. And then we have an owner that's like, yeah, I'll take my 9 to 10 million profit a year, and you can beat us all you want. We're good. We're fine. Don't worry about it. We'll spend $50 million on payroll this year. No big deal.
I was, I'm not going to mention any companies or names of that, but I had an opportunity many years ago to sit in the owner's box with Bob Nutting. And he shared with me, I was in the advertising business. People who know me know where I was. And he shared with me, we were talking about bobbleheads. And, that's a real controversial issue here in Pittsburgh, right?
Wow. Bob Smizing said it best. This is a bobblehead town.
Right. And he says to me, I couldn't believe Mr. Nutting said this to me. He turns to me and he said, David, I can't count on winning or losing to put people in the seats. So you better damn well believe we're going to have some of the best bobbleheads in the business.
Not to mention damn belly fireworks.
I just met the guy and he said, all right, listen, let's turn our attention to possibly my favorite subject in the entire world, and that would be our Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, let me just tell you this, Paul. This is true. A lot of people are like, I don't watch the preseason. The first preseason game, if it's home, I'm there. If it's away, I'm in front of the TV like 3 hours ahead of time. And I look heavenward and I thank the man upstairs and I ask, what have I done so good to deserve Steeler football? There's something about Steeler football that just does that to me. And if I want to be impartial and talk about when it comes to the black and gold and Steeler football, there's zero impartiality out of me. So
we were raised that way.
We were raised that way. There's no doubt about it. So I'm really geeked about this season. Last year they had a top 5 defense. I hate losing Hargrave in the middle of the line. They do have a Lou, and they still have Big Dan.
They have Stewart healthy, too. Keep in mind, that was missing all of last year.
Right. And you got Devin Bush now in year 2. I think a lot of people have thought that maybe Edmonds might have been the weak link. And you know what? I think Edmonds is okay. You put Minka back there with him. Boy, the corners with Hayden and Nelson. I love this defense.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And the fact that Bud Dupree is back, I mean, people don't understand. Yes, Watt is unbelievable. But if you allow him to be double teamed with the absence of Dupree, he's not going to be that awesome. You run away from him. You protect, football is the ultimate team game. And the thing I love about it, and I think you probably love the same thing about it, is the chess game that's played. All you're trying to do with every single possession, every single play, is create a mismatch. That's where you're going to win and lose games. And when you have a defense that you have a couple players that basically demand a double team, Watt and Dupree right now, they demand double team. Guess what? You can't double team both of them. So right now as a defense, you are dictating what the offense can and can't do. They're going to have to keep a tight end in. They're going to have to at least, they're going to have to chip a guy with a running back. They're going to have to slant their offensive protection in certain ways just to even have an opportunity to make a play. And the thing that cracked me up, and I don't know what side of the fence you were on with this one, but when the Steelers lost Ben, and they still had the genius to go get Minka Fitzpatrick, so many people lost their minds because we've been trained in Pittsburgh. You never trade a draft pick, certainly not a first-round pick, ever, under any circumstances. You don't do that. To me, unless you have a proven star that hasn't reached his ceiling yet, is only going to get better. And as soon as he was here, everybody immediately got better. So all those people, and I was doing some stuff on the Fan at the time, all those people that were losing their minds, telling me this, it's a lost season, Ben's done, they're not going to, I'm like, they're building one of the best defenses in the NFL. Because remember, 2 years ago, if the defense would have just been decent, the offense was good enough, and Ben threw for 5,000 yards and I think 5,000 interceptions, which was unfortunate, but he had a very solid season and they had a very productive offense. This defense now, all they have to do offensively, basically don't suck. Don't turn the ball over. Score 25 points a game. You don't have to score 30. Score 25, and you're going to win 9, 10, 11, 12 games.
Well, you got UConn Cornelius. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger coming back at quarterback, right? You have added Eric Ebron. You still have Vance McDonald. You draft Chase Claypool. All of a sudden, you got 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". You got Juju now, where he's got some help. I mean, last year he had people there. And I'll tell you who I absolutely love is Deontay Johnson. When I first saw Deontay Johnson, and I got to see a little bit of him in college because he played in the MAC against my alma mater and my son's school, Ohio U. Yeah. So Deontay Johnson, he reminds me of a little Antonio Brown. AB's a little thicker, a little stronger. Maybe that came over years in the league. But in terms of change of pace, and once the ball is in your hand and separation, looks pretty similar to me.
Doc, my litmus test for a playmaker and certainly a wide receiver, take a punt to the house. Take a kickoff to the house. Because you know what? The 11 guys on the field that are trying to stop you from doing that are superior, unbelievable athletes. And if you go 95, 100 yards, or you take a punt 60, 70 yards to the house, you're a special elite athlete with shake, elusiveness, explosion, burst, all the words that you like to use and associate with a big-time playmaker. When I saw him return that kickoff for a touchdown, I went, I don't need Juju anymore. I don't need anyone anymore. I found my guy. That's the guy. And he's going to be very much like AB. Maybe not that elite, but he is certainly going to be an unbelievable playmaker, the kind of guy like Antonio Brown that every time he touches the ball, you're thinking he can take it to the house.
No doubt about it. We have another question here from Brandon Saka. And Brandon wants to know, Paul, if ratings are through the roof after the resumption of play because of the Cronizzle, do you see a day where teams are going to do away with these large stadiums and are going to go with smaller sites, arenas, what have you?
I don't think so. I still think, I'm a Penn State guy. I'm sorry, but a whiteout with 107,000 is pretty darn special. I don't want that to go away. I don't know how they would be looking at that as advantageous. Granted, the pro sports, they make their money with the TV contracts. Yeah. There's no question about that. I'd mentioned earlier, the NHL, they need you to show up and pay $100 to $300 for your seat. They need you to do that. The Penguins have had over, I think, 450 straight sellouts, something along those lines. Crazy. They need that. I don't see them going away. What I think you might see on the college level is, well, unfortunately, you're going to see a lot of sports go away. Football pays the freight for everybody. Title IX was great. I have 2 daughters. I want equal opportunity for everyone. But at the same time, it's going to be financial. And what unfortunately happened was wrestling didn't have a female counterpart. So, boy, long time, like Syracuse had all sorts of All-Americans, national champions. Wrestling is gone. So the spirit of that federal law was to give women opportunity. But what the actuality and the practicality of Title IX was, we're going to take away opportunities from guys. Not happy about that. The point is, though, maybe some of the college, arenas, stadiums, they might shrink a little bit. But I don't think professionally, the gate is kind of your profit center.
Yeah.
If you own a bar and you charge a cover, that's kind of the money in your pocket kind of thing when you have like a good thing going, wherever that might be. Right. Back in the day when you're going to Zelda's or you're going to Peter's and they're $5 to get in. That bar owner, that was going into his pocket. That was kind of his, hey, that's my cash. the gate for sports, that's a profit center they don't want to lose. Then you have the concessions and everything on top of that, the parking. That is all part of the equation, all part of that big economic equation. I don't think they're going to give up.
And that bar owner, he needs to be at full capacity, and yet he can only be at 50% right now. Hey, thanks for that question, Brandon. So
nice.
let's get back to the you mentioned Penn State. We're going to talk about that in a minute because I want to hit you at a little bit of a different angle because you know where my loyalties lie in the Penn State Pitt issue, and I want to get your opinion on it. But before we go there, I want to go back to the Steelers for a minute because I want to talk a little bit about the backup quarterback situation and see if you are on the same page with me here about this. You know, Mason Rudolph. Now, as a Pitt fan, I saw Mason Rudolph play Pitt 2 years in a row and absolutely just throw up numbers like nobody's ever seen 2 years in a row.
Well, he had a pretty good receiver too, didn't he?
Yeah, right. But the NFL is a whole different beast, the speed of the game. And what I saw out of Mason, even though there was little teeny improvements, I saw a guy that didn't have great pocket presence, didn't have great footwork. So what happened on a lot of his throws was he was in more traffic than the average NFL quarterback, and on a lot of his throws, he couldn't even extend his arm. He would come down, and his arm was hitting an offensive or defensive lineman's helmet.
Yeah.
Did you see any of those same things?
I think I'm the one guy left in Pittsburgh that I really want to see what this kid can do based on what I saw him do 2 years in a row against Pitt. And what I've seen, even in that brief moment when he came in finally, when they, on the fan, when people were wearing the duck hats and everything else, I'm going, stop. The duck, I can throw the ball better than the duck. I have a stronger arm than the duck. He does not have an NFL arm. He will never start another NFL game. I'm sorry. He does not have the ability. And once a defense understands that the guy can't throw the deep out, that the guy can't get the ball past them, no matter how much speed you have at wide receiver, if your quarterback can't throw it, you don't have to cover it. Everybody pinches up. No one allows anyone to run. But when Mason got in there in that Cleveland game, after they finally said, Duck, listen, it's just not working, bam, bam, bam. He just started throwing the pill everywhere, throwing lasers. He has a great arm. Now, do I know that he has the goods to be a strong NFL quarterback? I don't. But I don't think enough people know that he doesn't, because he had the strangest season of an NFL quarterback ever. The Myles Garrett, debacle, then the additional injury. It just was a horrible season. Now, the Kevin Colbert first-round grade, that's a little suspect now, I have to admit. But look, like, where's Drew Rosen? Where's all these other guys that were first-round picks? I mean, my buddy Pony, the Jameis Winston thing. I mean, he played that. I've never seen anyone play anything harder in their life. This guy, when you're throwing 30 picks, that's not – I don't care how good you look when you're not throwing a pick. There's nothing like in football, completed passes, dropped passes, interceptions determine every game. Just watch a 3rd down and 10. Yep. And a quarterback throws a perfect strike to the receiver just inside the first down marker, and they drop it. I guarantee you the other team, the opposition, comes down, they score. All of a sudden, that's like a 14-point swing. You drop an interception. That's going to determine. So there were a lot of drops. Mason had a lot of guys drop balls for him. Yeah. Juju. And by the way, he wins 2 games if Connor and Juju don't have fourth-quarter fumbles. Don't you think from a confidence perspective and a perception of like what Mason can do as a player changes dramatically if those 2 games are won instead of lost, and what that does to the season?
One game, and they're in.
They playoffs by 1 game,
right.
And Mason played well enough to win both of those games.
Yes, he did.
His proven players, his Pro Bowl players, fumbled the ball in the fourth quarter. And then, of course, the defense in the fourth quarter, they couldn't come up with a stop. That wasn't going to happen either, even though they were vaunted and they were coming and they were better. So I'm glad they didn't go out and get another backup quarterback. I want Mason to be that guy. I understand that no one works harder. I know that physically he's going to be in absolutely amazing shape. do not doubt his arm. You've seen it against Pitt. You've seen what he can do.
Sure.
He has an NFL arm. There is no question about that. Does he have the poise? Does he have the pocket presence? Does he have the decision making? I don't know, but no one knows that he doesn't. We are way too, and it's because of Twitter. It's because of sports talk. It's because of everything else. We want to get rid of people. Do you realize how many times, Tomlin's been fired by every fan? Ben's been, everyone wants to get rid of everybody immediately. The beauty of the Steelers, continuity, stability. And Cleveland's had, 1,600 coaches in the last 15 years? But they don't look, an hour south and realize, wow, the Steelers, Bill Cowher had 2 straight losing seasons. And after his worst season, they gave him a 3-year extension. Why would they do that? For continuity and stability, because we're sticking here for the long term. It's not about, I love the fact that there's only 16 regular season games, and they're huge. But at the same time, you have to have patience in every aspect. And the Steelers do, and that's why they're so successful year in and year out.
The Duck story was great while it was happening. I remember, I believe his first start was against the Chargers out in L.A. when Steeler fans took over their little high school soccer stadium they're playing in out there. And that week there was a Pitt basketball game, and Duck walks into our section a couple seats over, and he's walking down, and he's looking for his buddy, and he can't find his buddy. And I'm looking over, and I'm watching Duck look for his friends, and I'm noticing that nobody knows who he is. So he sits down by himself, and I walk over. I actually got a shot of me and Duck there, and I walk over.
There we go.
I said, Duck, listen. I said, I know who you are. I know you're not really well recognized right now. And Duck says to me, I saw a couple people looking, which I thought was kind of funny.
I wanted that story to happen more than anything in the world. The Steelers cut him. Not one other team in the NFL had any interest. Zero. He was on the shelf. He was done. Steelers have a situation where they need someone that knows their system. My favorite quote in a very, very long time. I was at home on a bender when they called. I was home on a bender. That's my kind of guy.
Yeah, right.
That's an old school kind. I'm a football player. I was home on a bender. I wanted him to succeed in the worst way. His story was some of the best stuff we've ever seen in Pittsburgh. The problem is he doesn't have an arm. And you know what? That doesn't last long in the NFL. It just doesn't. And I wish he did, because he has the smarts. He has the moxie. He feels the pocket. What he did at the college level was surreal, but it was against a much different level of competition.
No question about it. All right, let's talk Penn State for a minute here. And we've already established that in all of this, it's all about the money. No. So I get it. It's about the money. Paul, should Penn State play Pitt every year?
Every single year. No question. And I get a kick, and now I got to throw this out at the Pitt people. Now, I grew up here. Pitt was my hometown school. My dad went to Pitt. 1976, I'm at Three Rivers Stadium. Pitt, Penn State, final game of the year. I'm cheering like crazy. I'm a sophomore in high school. I'm the biggest Pitt fan in the universe at that game. 79, I go to Penn State. Things changed a little bit. That's my school. I love Pitt football. I love Pitt basketball even more. Grew up with it. Absolutely love it. Joe Paterno made himself the athletic director in 1980 for one reason and one reason only. One of the smartest people I've ever had the pleasure of getting to know. He knew the future of college athletics was in the big mega conference, knew that was coming. He tried to put together the All-Eastern Sports Conference. Sure. Pitt, BC,
Syracuse.
Syracuse.
Maryland.
In this.
Boston College.
Not only, here's what they did. They said, not only do we don't want to be a part of your little conference, we're not going to let you into the Big East to play basketball. So that was the real slap in the face to Penn State and to Joe Paterno, which obviously he wasn't above being petty and holding a grudge, which I always thought, and I called him out on it a lot. I'm like, Coach, you got to let this go. Pitt and Penn State have to play every year. 73 or 4 through 82, 83, There wasn't a better game in the country.
It was every bit Ohio State, Michigan.
Oh.
And that's not to disparage Ohio State, Michigan. I love those games. But Pitt, Penn State was every bit of that.
In 1981, when Pitt was undefeated and ranked #1, I grew up with Danny. Danny was a friend, and I'm friends with Danny and Cindy now. I mean, for heaven's sakes, Penn State had already lost 2 games. I'm thinking, you know what? I'm a Pitt fan today. I'm covering that game for the student newspaper, the Daily Collegian, and I'm thinking, I really want Pitt to do this. I want them to go win a national championship. That'd be great for Danny. That'd be great for the school. That'd be great for everything. They come out and they score 2 touchdowns. I'm like, it's on. This route is on. Mark Robinson, the outstanding safety for Penn State, picks off a Marino pass, takes it to the house. Oh my! I never saw anything like that. Next thing you know, it's 48-14.
It's one of those scores that you just hear the number and you know exactly what you're talking about. When you hear 48-14, it's a Pitt fan. You're like,
Doc, my love for that game and its history. I got to do some golf events down the road. I just remember having a couple adult beverages. We were out in Blairsville at Tom's Run in Blairsville, and it was
with all the statues. I know Tom's Run.
It was Pitt versus Penn State, and I'm hanging out with Roger Kingdom and Jackie Sherrill, and I mean, just you start naming, Pitt players from that time. The stories and the way those guys loved each other, like loved to hate each other. Like the fans don't get it.
Right.
The Penn State guys to this day are boys. They love each other. They will be friends forever.
Sure.
That competed against one another. There's a twins from Bethel. One went to Pitt, one went to Penn State. I did a feature story on that. I miss that more than anything in the world. And yes, they should play every year, but Pitt has to be careful because I can't believe they told Duquesne we're not going to play you in basketball.
It's the same.
They're going to get on a high horse and complain about Penn State won't play us in football. And it's just ridiculous. They should play everybody. I was hoping during this, what do we call it? The co-shizzle,
co-nizzle.
The pro-mizzle, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah, you're trying to make it kosher.
With the co-nizzle, what they should do is just play a regional schedule.
Yeah.
Just throw out the conferences for one season and just say, can you get a game with someone close? Pitt, West Virginia, Pitt, Penn State, BC, just all the old Eastern schools could play for 1 year and have some fun.
I gotta share with you my Joe Paterno story.
Okay.
Because, growing up, I loved Pitt. Walking up Cardiac Hill in 76.
I'm with you.
I know. So now, keep in mind, my older stepsister, Randy, she went to Penn State. Some of my best friends, Jim Bennett, guy, your fraternity brother. He went to Penn State. But I grew up feeling a certain way about Jopa, right? Mm-hmm. Fast forward to the early 2000s, and I'm the director of sports sales for a company that helps football coaches analyze video. And the first market we went into was the high school market because they were basically just using videotape. And this technology allowed a high school coach. Now, keep in mind, this is 17 years ago from now.
Technology changes pretty quick.
Yeah, high school coach, when you would go in and show him how, if I went and talked to my man Bobby Palco at West A and I said, hey, let's say you're playing, Ambridge next week and you want to see their last 3 games every time they lined up from the gun and the left hash with under 3 yards to go, boom, 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 and you could see it just like that. High school coaches loved it.
Oh, yeah.
We had the kings of the Whippeal that owned it. By the time I left there, we had 1,000 out of the 16,000 high schools that played football in America that were using it. So the CEO sent me to Penn State to study their video operations to see if there was a market for us at the next level. Now, keep in mind, this was a $5,000 product, of which even at that time, Penn State was spending $500,000 on that type of stuff, right? So I go up to Penn State, I meet with their video guy, and as I'm leaving, walking through the Lash football building, I'm right there in the lobby, and this is like February, and now I'm not, please don't take this as any disrespect, but this is the way I saw it in my perception of Joe. It was at like 1:30 in the afternoon. The door to the lobby opened up. Joe got out of a passenger side of the car with like a V-neck sweater. He kind of reminded me of like the founder and owner of the hardware store who stopped working a few years ago, and after his afternoon nap, he asked him, "Hey, bring me by the store." Right? So
Right.
So
Me up in front of the window.
Right. So Joe comes in, and there's a couple recruits in the lobby with me, hanging out with their family. And, I'm a pretty shy guy, as you can tell. So I go up, and I got to introduce myself to Joe. So I put my hand out, and I said, "Joe, I'm David Shirey from Pittsburgh. I'm up here talking to your video guy. We help coaches do blah, 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 this, that, and the other." Put my hand out. He looks at me, and he says, "What the hell are you telling me for?" And that was it. That was the extent of the entire interaction I had with Joe Paterno. "What the hell are you telling me for?" So, it was just great.
Very impressive.
Yeah, right. I mean, he kind of reconfirmed some things for me. So,
I'll tell you what, I have the privilege every year. The Penn State Alumni Association of Pittsburgh would have a luncheon, and Joe and the other coaches would come in. This would normally be early spring, and I would MC it every year, and I couldn't believe how gracious he was. Sitting up there in the dais, that front table, yeah. There was a line to go. I mean, he never ate a bite, never touched his lunch. Right. Everyone would say, "Joe, I met you. I did how they just tell you that," and he would go, I remember that guy. How's your dad doing? That must have been a bad day, bad moment. And he is so unbelievably, like when he would recruit somebody, like he would know everything about that person's situation, everything about how their parents were brought up, where they were brought up. He was a phenomenal human being. Phenomenal. And
I know that him and Johnny Majors had a great relationship. There's this story about one of them, I think, yeah, right, with the clothes.
Yeah. Johnny's clothes, his suitcase didn't arrive. Well, they both signed with Nike. So what Nike does every year is take their coaches on this phenomenal, trip to a resort in Hawaii or whatever. So Johnny's on the Nike train, and he gets there. He doesn't have any of his clothes.
Right.
Joe hooked him up. They're like the same size. Yeah, Joe had a great relationship with all of those guys. He really did.
So Vince had a question, but we kind of already touched on it. Thank you, Vince, for asking the question. John Algio has a question for you, Paul. If it isn't Penn State related, but who do you see having the better career, Tua or Trevor Lawrence?
That's tough. Tua is an interesting cat. I don't know what the hip injury, if there's going to be anything lingering there, because part of his appeal is his ability to move. I mean, I like left-handed. I don't know why I like left-handed quarterbacks, but I do. There's something about him, the Steve Young and there's something cool about a guy that can really be that athletic. Lawrence, however, what is he? 6'6", 6'7". Last year he had like a 92-yard run.
Right.
I mean, athletically and arm-wise, Lawrence should have the better career. He really should. He has I don't know all of the intangibles, but he has more tangibles than any player that's ever probably come out in the last 30 years. He's a phenomenal quarterback from a phenomenal program. Seems like his head's together. Seems like he's a student of the game. But so's Tua.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they both have really good careers. Lawrence, simply by what God has given him, should probably be a little better.
So many great young quarterbacks coming into the league now, which makes the future very exciting. All right.
What also happens in the NFL, Doc, you better have success early, because now you're going to see Mahomes right now. He's getting into the $40 million, Russell Wilson, $40 million. What you really need to do is win a Super Bowl when your quarterback's on that rookie contract, because then you have cap room to build around him. Right. As soon as you have the Peyton Manning situation, the reason he only won, well, I mean, I guess we'll gift him the second Super Bowl in Denver, but the reason he only won one Super Bowl in Indy was they didn't have the money to pay anyone else. When you have like Ben next year, not this year, but next year, he's $41 million cap hit.
Yep.
You're not going to add a lot of weapons for Ben.
No.
But he's getting $41 million.
No.
And the cap doesn't seem to be going up that high. So it's going to be very different. I mean, Patrick Mahomes should probably – he should probably win, 5 or 6 Super Bowls based on his ability. But I don't think that from a cap standpoint, you're not going to be able to maneuver that.
I mean, if you're not a Patrick Mahomes fan, you don't have a pulse.
No.
Paul, when I was growing up, I always loved – I know we're running a little longer here, but, man, you're just so easy to talk to. You cool sticking around for a few more minutes?
Oh, yeah, I'm fine.
All right. I always loved the aesthetic in sports. Matter of fact, when I was in college, I took a class called Aesthetic in Sports. And, for a guy my age who's about to, be a senior citizen here not too long, I probably am too into uniforms and that sort of thing. I tend to love the classics. I'm not big on the newfangled stripes. I'm sure you love that Nittany Lion look. I love the old school big look. Is there another uniform in sports that you just love?
Well, I remember, and I think you'll see my true Pitt colors when I tell you one of my favorite human beings of all time is one Carol Bino Cook, who was one of the all-time classics. And he would just simply declare Michigan as the best helmets in football history. And they are. I don't think you go back to the old Los Angeles Rams helmets, back when the Steelers beat the Rams in 79, that uni was pretty sharp. Chargers uniforms have always been pretty sharp. Grew up kind of as a UCLA, just the color scheme.
Love
UCLA. I had a UCLA hat when I was in high school just because I love the colors and I love the Bruin. I loved everything about them. My guy Tom Bradley went out and coached there for a little bit, and he sent me some stuff. I'm like, you don't understand how happy I am, right? I have always been into uniforms and what they represent because they're just cool. And isn't it hard to watch? Like my son's become an NBA fan, which is really fun for me because I never thought he'd be an NBA fan.
Yeah.
Again, there's only a select few of us here in Pittsburgh that pay attention to the NBA, but it's hard to watch those guys in the short shorts. I mean, I was looking at a Larry Bird compilation of how about his passing and some of the things that people forget about Larry Bird?
Amazing.
Couldn't get past the short shorts. They weren't good. No more short shorts ever. That can't ever happen again for guys.
I was a Magic fan. All right, while we're on uniforms, I want to do a little something here. I pulled up a couple old school classic uniforms in sports, and actually some of them are some alternates or some throwbacks. I want to show you some. I want you to tell me whether you love it or hate it. Maybe we can both give a comment why we love it or hate it.
All right.
Here we have the 95 Islanders in their Gordon's fish stick uniforms.
Hated those.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
That's a bad look.
All right. How about the Denver Broncos throwbacks? Now, I love those vertical socks.
Yeah, the socks are okay. The color's not working for me.
Yeah, the color is a little strange.
Bad. Now, I don't know if you're going to show it. I don't want to jump the gun, but I'll tell you, if it's not shown, I'll tell you the worst uniform in history ever on the gridiron. But let's keep rolling.
All right. The Pittsburgh Pirates turn ahead the clock uni. I think that's Chris Benson right there.
That is Chris Benson was, beaten up by his wife, Anna, in a very horrible situation. But I loved her comment. I don't know if you remember what she said. If he
I do remember about the Mets.
Yeah, if he ever cheated on her, what she was going to do was very entertaining.
This is PG rated, so we'll keep it.
There should never be red in a Pirate uniform ever. That's just a bad idea.
There is so much wrong with that. I'm just going to move on to the next one.
Yeah, awful.
The Tampa Bay Rays 2014 turn back the clock. Love it or hate it?
I'd love it if it was my softball team.
I'll tell you why I love it, Paul. I love it because the Tampa Bay Rays didn't exist to turn back the clock to anything, so they have a fake throwback. And
That's
what
awesome.
This is basically an old San Diego Padre uniform template where they changed the colors around and they showed what they may have looked like in the 70s.
So we'll give them a very high mark for creativity.
All right. The Montreal Canadiens 1912 throwbacks. I don't think you're a fan.
No, it reminds me of my least favorite uniform, and you probably know where I'm going.
I do. We're going to get to that.
I figured we'd get there.
I have a feeling we may have a difference of opinion, but
all right, that's fine.
All right. The Philly Eagles 1934 throwbacks, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the year after the Steagles.
Yeah, they were the Steagles at that point.
Right.
I love those unis. I love that. That's a love. I'm gonna give that 2 thumbs up.
I'm a little torn. I'll tell you why. If you showed me the uni and said it was Ypsilanti High School in Michigan, I'd say that's a sweet uni.
Yeah, for an NFL team, I'm with you.
I just don't see any connection to the Eagles. It doesn't scream Eagles to me, so that's why.
And that's
all right. The Baltimore Ravens, very rare mustard pants a la the Steelers back in the 70s.
Just, I mean, those colors don't even go together.
I know.
I mean, that's awful.
That is actually still in their arsenal, but they never really
That's
bust
really
out.
Disgustingly awful. I hate that. There we go.
All right. Here we are.
That's the worst uniform ever perpetrated. I feel horrible for any Steeler fan that bought one of those jerseys.
No,
I feel awful. I mean, whoever sold you that jersey, just out of the decency, should give you your money back.
I did not buy one of the jerseys, but I can tell you, Paul, I think it's a top 3 uniform of all time. I think only the Pittsburgh Steelers can get away with wearing that uniform.
They look like bumblebees.
I point out the fact that the stripes on the socks match the stripes on the jersey. Now,
I like the socks.
I will give you bonus points, Paul, if you can tell me this is 2013, and if you look close, that is number 89. Can you tell me who number 89 is on the 2013 Pittsburgh Steelers? That's really putting you on the spot.
Yeah, you know what? If I would have remembered, it would have hit me immediately, and it didn't. So I'm going to have to say no.
Jericho Cotchery.
There we go.
There we go. All right. Yeah. This next one is
football Jets.
This next one I'm going to show you has to be one of the all-time talked about uniforms.
Oh my, the shorts. Chicago White Sox, again, they're softball uniforms. That's embarrassing. They should have refused to come out of the clubhouse to play in that game with those uniforms.
I showed this to my son, and he said, "Is that a collar on there also?"
Yes, it is.
I don't know what's going on there.
That is so horrible. It's horrible.
And last but not least, the creamsicles.
I just absolutely love those uniforms. Love them.
I love those uniforms too.
I love them. I think both teams are well represented in terms of uniforms right there.
No doubt. And I should have also shown you. I should have shown you the Tampa Bay's road uniforms, the all-white uniforms with the creamsicle accents. They are also a thing of beauty.
Classic.
All right.
One thing I have to point out that you didn't – I thought maybe you would bring up that I always loved, and I remember when it all transpired and it all got weird. One of the few guys growing up here in Pittsburgh playing hockey as a kid, probably your buddies, D. Rizzo and Buddy Martin, a couple of Alderdice boys. I don't know if you knew those guys, but
I know those guys are older than me, but I know those guys.
Yeah, we played with those guys growing up. I love the blue Penguin uniforms. I didn't think that they needed to conform and go black and gold. I mean, it worked out pretty well, but I love when they would have the blue as their alternative jersey. I love the Penguin blue. Love it.
I agree. And that one year they had that darker blue.
Navy blue was nice too.
Navy blue was a good look. They used to have the diagonal Pittsburgh in the old school blue.
Love that. And
a lot of people love that in the black and gold, the diagonal. Which could
remember the Bruins sold. They sued them.
Right.
The Bruins tried to prevent the Penguins from going black and gold. They lost.
Thank God they lost. Thank God. Paul, I want to mention what we're going to be doing on Thursday's show real quick here. On Thursday's show, I have a very special show. It's only my second episode, but we already got a very special show. It's going to be a conversation amongst friends, race in America, a conversation amongst friends, me and my buddy Daryl Reed. And anybody that knows Daryl and knows me knows that we could talk and laugh for hours. And if there's anybody that I'm comfortable having that talk with live on the internet, it is Daryl Reed. That's going to be Thursday at 8 o'clock. Paul, I hope you'll tune in. I just got to tell you again that, years from now when there's hundreds of millions of people watching this show, I am going to think back to my first ever episode to my man Paul Alexander, who did me a solid, man. Thank you so much, Paul.
I'm looking forward to maybe the 5th anniversary show, 5th year.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to run out of other people quick, so you're going to be back on quick, my man.
It would be my pleasure. Doc,
thank you so much, Paul.
I'll see you on Thursday. I'll be watching.
My man. Thanks, Paul.
All right. Thanks, Doc.
All right.
Take care.
See you on Thursday, everybody. Thanks for watching.